beautiful day here in downtown D.C., one of the Department of Transportation building here down in the Navy Yard. It's also the headquarters of PHMSA. And we were here in July, back on July 20th, and several people here. We were talking about pipeline safety and the coding issue that's been several of us have been working on for several years. And shortly after that, a group of our colleagues actually had a meeting with PHMSA, which resulted in a safety order, which was issued in August, early August. And then months passed when nothing really came of that safety order until just last week. Meanwhile, MVP has been burying this degraded, unsafe pipe on the MVP road across West Virginia in a dead run, working long hours, weekends. So we have some questions. I also have some other things I want to highlight that is occurring on my property that I monitor every day, several times a day when I'm home. And those concerns prompted PHMSA to send out a couple of inspectors. We had a meeting last Wednesday. We talked about this issue, what was going on. And so I'm going to first start off by recapping our concerns from that meeting. And one of them was that MVP has been parking cars and trucks on the pipeline despite there being a designated parking area at the end of the access road on my property or just off my property. My property is also organic. They're not supposed to have those vehicles on the right of way to start off with, and never have until just last week. And I don't know, when I left on Thursday, they actually had put those cars back in the access designated parking area. We'll see what happens when I get back. So another issue that we had was parking these cars on top of the pipe is something that probably shouldn't happen, because I was told by the MVP representatives that I couldn't cross the pipe with heavy equipment, something like 40,000 pounds. So 10 cars sitting on top of the pipe is probably more than 40,000 pounds. Okay, these are trucks. These are not just cars. These are trucks, large pickup trucks. A lot of this. The pipe has been run over repeatedly by heavy equipment, and cars and trucks should be removed. And I said I wanted that pipe inspected. I wanted to dig it up and inspect it. And I was saying, well, I don't know if we have to do that, or I think they have to do that. I want to show you a picture that was taken, and we have it here as a poster. So this is a big, heavy bulldozer parked right directly on top of the pipe. And in the lower corner, you'll see a route up and down the mountainside. And they actually ran over that area for days until I drew their attention to it. And they continue to run over the pipe and store stuff on the pipe. And this is something that I was told I couldn't do, that it was harmful to the pipe. And then you'll see other equipment there. So there's stuff that's happening on my property where they know they're being constantly surveilled. I can imagine what's happening across West Virginia when they're building this pipe. That's an issue. I want that issue addressed. I want to thank Appalachian Voices for helping me get these posters made. Okay, I have very strong evidence that pipes were placed in the trenches in 2018 and especially 2019 with rocks on or under the pipe. The pipe should be removed and probably replaced. So I have some photos here that illustrate that. I actually have hundreds of videos and pictures that's been sent to them. So this is January of 2019, and you can see rocks here in the trench. This black coating wrapping is supposed to be used whenever they have pipe in rocky terrain. It's inadequately wrapped. And I got one more photo of that. So normally they don't work in the wintertime, but in that year they were rushing to try to get the pipe finished before they lost permits, and they did lose permits, so they left the farm in February. Working in very wet conditions in January, February 2018, 2019, and so this is The majority of the property that I live on is like that, and I know other places it's like that. I also pointed out to them there are places where the pipe was not placed firmly on the ground, which I understand is a requirement. And there's a couple places on my property where the pipe is at least 3 feet from the bottom of the trench, and I saw some other places nearby where it's at least 5 feet above the bottom of the trench. So I asked them to address those things. So going on, we have I said large rocks should not be buried in the trench above or around the pipeline, but I feel like they probably were in 2018 and 2019, not just on my property, but on some other properties that I was monitoring at that time, probably on places that weren't being watched. Pipes that are degraded by over 6 months of UV radiation and other environmental elements should be replaced. Trying to recoat these pipes on site will be inadequate. So, this is just one place on my farm. There's 4 different pictures of this degraded pipe. It was actually, we'll back up to 2017, 2018. Robert Cooper, who is the manager for this project for MVP, I was in 3 different federal court hearings and one deposition where he said that this pipe had to be buried within 6 months. Manufacturers had an expiration date. This pipe was coated in 2016 and 2017. The light blue pipe you see here was coated in late 2016, and the other pipe, the green pipe on this piece of property was the latest date was in August of 2017, so it's probably expired before they ever brought it into the road. They buried it on my property the end of 2018, 2019. So the pipe was being put in the ground 2018, 2019, and more in 2020, 2021, and now they're just going like their hair's on fire trying to get this pipe buried. Like I pointed out to, the red pipe you see here is pipe that's supposed to be used to go under roads. I think maybe streams or stuff. It's got a little different coating on it. It's maybe a little thicker. So that's what we're looking at here in Appalachia. So we were standing on the road with a couple of FEMSA inspectors, and I pointed to an old barn that's on the property. I said, see that barn right over there? It's about 125 years old. It's pretty sound, except for one shed is rotted and fallen off of it, and the tin roof is in really bad shape. I can hire the best painters in America, get the best paint that you could buy, and have them paint that barn. And I would still have a dangerous, unsafe, rotten barn. They didn't like that analogy too much, but that's what's happened here. The Keystone XL had a situation where they had pipe sitting in the southern part of the country that was degraded, and their manufacturers, their own people said, this has to go back to a climate-controlled factory to be recoated. MVP says that's impractical. That means to me that my life and the life of many people along the road is not worth a hoot, as they may say in the mountains.
It's impractical.
It's impractical. It means it costs them too much money. And money, as we all know in this pipeline, is the source of why it's being built to start off with. So, we'll go back to that issue in a minute. We had some questions like, how are the pipes being cleaned before recoating? The FEMSA director just announced that a group called KTA, which we found out is a small, pretty new company in Pittsburgh, probably an industry insider, I suspect, which MVP wants to hire. That's who they want to hire. So I'm sure they'll get their money's worth out of this group, in my opinion. The plan for the coating. The FEMSA director has approved the KTA plan for coating, but we can't see it. What is the agreement? What happens to all the exposed pipes that we are buried between July and August? Do they have to dig them up now? They were just putting a little bit of coating on top of a lot of these pipes. I've seen pipes that had bears walking around on top of them. I've seen pipe in West Virginia where longhorn cattle walked amongst that for probably a couple of years or more. And then in the spring, I actually saw a picture of I got a picture of a big longhorn bull rubbing his head and his horns on that pipe. And I was over there last week. They've top coated that pipe, and they have not touched where I saw this bull pushing against that. I've seen pipes slide off the pipeline, off the bottom, off of pedestals. I haven't seen any pipe really being treated on the bottom. We ask that a KTA inspection reports and all subsequent actions taken be posted in a timely manner and available to the public via the PHMSA reading room and at FERC and the FERC docket for this pipeline. I had a question for them. Has PHMSA ever had a situation like this in the past? Where pipes sit out on the road for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Exposed to this UV light, environmental degradation. Have they ever had that situation, or are we the guinea pigs to see if this is actually going to work? Is schools and churches and cities and towns, are we the guinea pigs? I asked to request a hearing from PHMSA leadership, someone that could act, not just a liaison. The inspectors seem to be conscientious people. They listened. They said they would go back and look. We gave them some other information that they said they would look back and look at. I don't doubt in the least that these people are good, conscientious people. But the leaders, people like Tristan Brown, Alan Mayberry, or Robert Burrows, that's who I want to talk with. I want to sit down and talk to them. Now, I had planned today, if I didn't get to talk to somebody that had not just a liaison who come out and tried to make us feel good, if somebody didn't come out and talk to me today, I was planning on maybe just sitting down over here and dare them to arrest a landowner who's just asking some questions. But I did get a letter yesterday from a liaison, and I'll read it. So we won't do that today. We won't push too hard today. But I'll be back here in a couple of weeks, and hopefully I can have that meeting toward the end of October. So let me flip papers here. So late yesterday afternoon, I got a letter from the FERC liaison, Nina Reju. She's the community liaison for the Eastern Regional Office of Pipe Safety. I've talked to her several times. She's a nice enough lady. She doesn't say a lot because she can't. She's the person that's our liaison, and you take that for what it's worth. She says, "Thank you for your email. Due to scheduling conflicts, I'm unable to meet with you in Washington, D.C." Well, I actually didn't want to meet with Reed. I wanted to meet with some of these other guys. Following your press conference, unfortunately, the lead inspector is unavailable to meet with you in Washington, D.C. as well. You know, it was a holiday this week, and there was not a lot of times when I requested this, so I'll give him a break. As the Eastern Regional Community Liaison, I'm your primary point of contact for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Pipeline safety, this is the standard line. Pipeline safety is our number one priority at PHMSA, and our area inspectors are always willing to address your concerns regarding MVP that are within PHMSA authority. The lead inspector has your letter and your most recent questions regarding the MVP for appropriate handling. So somebody's got the letter, and maybe we'll get a response in the next week or 10 days. Please be advised, PHMSA and EQM, or ETRN, a little windy here, entered into a consent agreement. This is a consent agreement that allows them to continue to bury pipe that's unsafe, is what this is. We required ETRN to make corrective measures following an informal consultation with the operator. The actions outlined in the consent agreement include running tools capable of detecting damage to pipes both before and after putting the pipe in the ground, obtaining third-party validation. We don't want third-party validation. We want independent third-party people that will actually say you can't bury this pipe if that's the case. We don't want the validation. We want action. And witnessing coding tests, remediation activities, and developing a work plan that must be submitted and approved by FEMSA. And they got 30 more days to do that. They're burying pipe in Bent Mountain, Virginia, in Monroe County, West Virginia, and all across the road today. They buried it yesterday. They buried it Saturday. They probably buried some on Sunday. What's happening to that pipe? Since 2017, FEMSA has overspent 220 days in the field conducting inspections on the MVP, ensuring that the pipe is constructed and installed in accordance with safety standards, including proper coating. I won't say much about this, but I talked to the two FEMSA inspectors that was on my property, and I mentioned a few places in West Virginia where things had happened that they probably should have been informed about, and they had no clue. Where are they inspecting? The first time I saw a FEMSA inspector and knew they were on my property was last Wednesday. I asked that I be told when they're in the area. They said they would. They would be back in contact with me. They thanked us, the four of us that met with them, for enlightening them on a bunch of issues that they probably didn't have a clue about. And this is, there's a consent agreement at a FEMSA website. So I do thank her for this letter, although it's, as somebody says, it's just blah, 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 blah. I want to see action. I want to see somebody address our concerns. The safety order agreement does nothing to relay the concerns of people across West Virginia and Virginia. It's also going to be a precedent-setting action for every pipeline ever built in the country. This is not just about Mountain Valley Pipeline. This is about pipe safety everywhere. Back in December, I attended the Pipeline Safety Trust meeting in New Orleans. And one of the very first things I heard out of a FEMSA, I forget who it was, it might have been Tristan Brown, but I'm not going to say for sure it was the statement that pipeline safety cannot be considered when determining where a pipeline goes. Something to that effect. And I had, not being to one of these meetings attended by industry and government and citizens, I asked the question, in what alternate reality do we not take into safety of a route when determining where a pipeline goes? I had daggers stared at me. I had some people said a lot of people wanted to ask that question, nobody has. It's just not in my nature to let things go like that. It shocked me to hear that. So we talk about industry capture. FERC's industry captured, Virginia DEQ is captured by the industry, Virginia DEP. There's some really good people that work in those agencies. They're very conscientious. But then the management, the people in charge, have come from the oil and gas field. The number one industry capture that's ever happened in America happened in May. When Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, who I used to call a friend, had along with some other people, inserted into the physical responsibility, the debt ceiling bill, the mandate that Mountain Valley Pipeline was to be completed, that it took away our rights to challenge permits, and they know this is illegal and will most likely be struck down by the Supreme Court. But when the pipeline could be finished, they say, oh, well, it's finished, it was unconstitutional. This model is now being used in Kentucky to permit a prison that nobody wants. It's going to be used for it's the end of permitting. It's the end of the rule of law. And this must be stopped. So I'm about to wrap up here. I asked people to send me some comments about what they're seeing in West Virginia, Virginia. And I want to read a few of those comments, and we'll wrap up here. If you have questions, you can send them to maurywjohnson@yahoo.com. Reach out to me. I will forward your comments to FEMSA, or I'll try to answer your questions. If you're media that's watching this, I had several media folks and even some congressmen and senators that were possibly planning to be here today, but because of the situation in Israel and the press conference that just concluded, they said we can't be there, but they're watching. They'll be watching this video. We'll try to get it up on YouTube later. I know that we got VXC, Facebook is doing it, and we're doing it on Twitter. So I'm going to try to wrap up here real quickly and let you all go. But we demand answers. We want safety. We want PHMSA to be actually a pipeline hazard material and safety administration and not a captured agency. So let me finish these up. So here are some of the comments I've gotten from Virginia and West Virginia. As the consent agreement was published, MVP hurried to blanket pipes in the days during the 30 days for the independent inspector approved. Let me try this again. As the consent agreement was published, MVP hurried to blanket pipe. That's put this blanket coating around that they have to put in rocky soil, which a lot of our terrain is. During the 30 days for the independent inspector to approve MVP's plan. That gave the company 30 more days to bury pipe. The other one, MVP's top coating is a distraction and a sham. Another one, pipe on one farm is gorged hastily and poorly. Jeeped, whatever that means, has the ends bleached from UV light and corroded. Shame on PHMSA. Another one said they're calling this a B slope, making the steepness okay because it supposedly doesn't have landslide-prone soils. A lot of West Virginia and much of Virginia has these landslide-prone soils, and MVP has been busy trying to take care of a bunch of those for 3 or 4 years now. That's BS. Franklin County is notoriously for highly erodible soils. So this was a Franklin County comment. Observers report and documentation that MVP has covered and is burying pipe coating. One in particular we have been watching for years is wrapped for burying close to or through the wetlands water. The black pipe will join some badly uncovered and bad yellow covered pipe is making a hard left before traffic leaves the football field across the bottom land of Little Creek. A person from the MVP region of destruction in Virginia replied to the letter from Rita. This sucks. Sorry for the language. Neither PHMSA nor inspectors will meet. Third-party validation? That's enraging. It's interesting, she said, nothing like scrupulous and rigorous independent 30 inspection and review. They just said validation. Hope the papers don't blow away. It's starting to get a little windy here. Almost finished here. As the review is in order, the bad pipe evidence has been rushed and blanketed to sites. The evidence is on ground and being buried, and PHMSA is facilitating that. Again, shame on PHMSA. Another person commented, I think the worst thing about the PHMSA is they have been captured by the industry, and I just addressed that. This is pretty shameful that in America that we're doing this kind of thing. A now retired public liaison told me that the pipeline operators are running the show here. It is a disgrace to PHMSA. That's okay. We'll catch that piece of paper here in a minute. It's a disgrace to PHMSA and American people. Their technical folks are probably really sharp, but enforcement and public participation are really, really bad. Now it's the time for PHMSA to prove these statements wrong. Show us that you're actually an independent agency that's willing to stand up to Joe Manchin and the oil and gas industry. I got another comment. About the time we started this adventure, they got rid of most of their experienced inspectors. Yes, with industry capture, there's no hope for safety. I guess that's PHMSA. And for some reason, Biden doesn't want to tussle with them. Otherwise, why would he not have taken care of a permanent leadership years or long ago? Again, prove us wrong. Please correct me if you read the agreement differently. Here are a few major problems I see, which are playing out now on the road in Bent Mountain, Virginia. Bent Mountain, Virginia has been carpeted in pipe in the last 2 or 3 days. Careful review of the consent agreement helps me understand why. Section 15 gives MVP 30 days to get back with PHMSA on a plan. And how long is it going to take to actually implement the plan? Meanwhile, pipe is being buried that shouldn't be buried. PHMSA needs to say, stop all work until the plan is finalized and approved. It says, meanwhile, MVP has carpet bombed the road with pipe. In 30 days, there could be no more unburied pipe to test. Inspector KTA is named Section 13, but we know little more, including numbers, which are determined by NAC standards we don't have immediate access to. I think somebody was told that, though they won't be there in every case when the pipe is being coated, they just make unannounced spot checks because there's not enough of them to inspect the pipe everywhere. That's real comforting when you have this pipe in your backyard, or beside an elementary school, or beside a church, a large church, or at the edge of one of your towns as it crosses. While KT has yet to approve pipe coating test standards, the director, Burrs, has already approved. Not only is MVP barreling forth, they are doing so with Burroughs' approval. 17E. MVP is authorized to continue burying pipe and constructing. So MVP has carte blanche to hurry up and bury pipe. Another person said, my opinion, the consent agreement allows operation without verifying that the cathodic protection system is adequate. Most people don't know what cathodic protection systems is. A few years ago, I did not know. Unfortunately, I have to learn. I know way more than I ever thought about wanting to know about pipeline construction and safety. And I can tell you from what I read and what I've talked to people about, we're falling far short, not just on the MVP, but across this country on pipeline safety. And now they want to start building highly explosive carbon and hydrogen pipelines. This is not going to end well, people. Let's see. It allows operation without verifying the stress on pipes is within safety limits. And I got one more comment that somebody sent me just a little while ago, and I don't know where it's at.
The phone is in your pocket.
Oh, I don't know. I just keep writing stuff on pieces of paper. Here it is. The MVP said that sandblasting was complete. I think it's maybe coming from a compliance report, maybe. Sandblasting is used to remove paint and rust. Sandblasting is removing some of the coating that probably shouldn't be removed. Maybe buffing would be a better way to get rid of the flaking stuff. I don't know. The sand and silica used in sandblasting is a health hazard to workers, residents, and other living things. The ongoing airborne and toxic substances in the coating. The sand, which has been seen scattered in volumes across work sites, is harmful. This is a major example of why KXL scientists and pipeline managers directed to KXL pipeline several years ago was to be recoated in a factory, that the recoating needed to be done in a controlled environment. I saw a few weeks ago in Webster County, West Virginia, some pickup trucks wrapped in plastic, and it kind of piqued my interest. And then a few minutes later, I understand why. The coating was taking place in the open air. I could see coating on the ground near a stream, and the reason they coated to wrap those trucks, it dawned on me, was to keep the overspray from turning their white trucks blue. I mentioned this to the inspectors. I have since learned that Virginia DEQ has noted this happening. This is not the factory-controlled conditions. When you're rushing, you're getting this toxic spray into the air, on the land, and probably the water. So they need to stop. Now, finally, I have a message for investors. This is important. If you're an investor, if you're one of the people that's bankrolling this disaster, I hope you sleep well at night, realizing where this pipeline runs. I'll take you and show you. Contact me. I will take you and show you where this thing is going. But first off, the insane slope that was started, this insane project, I'm willing to take anybody, any reporter, any government official, any investor, and show you the disaster that the MVP is perpetrating on the people of Appalachia. And if somebody says, I'm not taking it anymore, thank you for listening. And got a question.
Yeah, Maury, forgive me for this, but simple question here. If indeed pipe is to be removed from the ground, maybe that's already been buried since July, wouldn't they have, in order to even do a spraying of it to get underneath it, don't they have to break the welds?
They can lift large sections of pipe out of the ground at one time.
Oh.
I saw them actually move 200-foot sections or maybe longer up a steep slope. They'll say, well, that's impractical. We can't do that. But in 2018, I actually saw them on my property move large sections of pipe up a steep bank after they told the Forest Service they couldn't do that. They take pipe out of the ground all the time in large sections. Yeah, they would have to cut some welds because you can't pick up 200 miles at one time. But they can do a lot of things that they don't want to do.
But for safety reasons, they ought to.
If they're truly concerned, an MVP says, we want to construct the safest pipeline. Well, that's what I heard about Leach Express that blew up a few days after putting in service. Everybody wants to, as long as it don't cost them all extra money. The whole reason for this is for profit. No one needs this gas. No one has ever shown anybody credible that this gas is actually needed into the gas market. And if we're real serious about ending climate change, these pipelines like this need to stop. They need to stop last year, 2 years ago. We, as a country, can do remarkable things if we want to. Unfortunately, greed and money and political power has interfered with our greatness as a country. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
And I think that concludes what I have to say, and the people that I came here to represent from across West Virginia and North Carolina, and other people from across the country who asked these questions. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back here. I'll send another letter out to the PHMSA and try to have that meeting and maybe some other people in a couple of weeks. Thank you. We were out here from D.C., and appreciate everybody.